India's former Prime Minister, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, one of the country's most loved, most respected leaders, is no more. He was the president of the Bharatiya Janata Party. He was the president of the Bharatiya Jansangh, the earlier avatar of the Bharatiya Janata Party. He was one of the most popular campaigners that BJP has ever had. He brought power and respectability to the party. But more importantly, he was an important element of India's nation building and democratic project. To discuss the man, his legacy, I have with me Vinod Sharma, the political editor of the Hindustan Times, who closely followed Atalji's political journey and knew him personally. Vinod sir, when we think about Atalji, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
He came from an ideology with which many people didn't agree. At times, I also found it very difficult to agree with the ideology of his party. But equally difficult was to disagree with Atalji himself. For in my view, and which is arguable, he embodied the idea that was India. He actually embodied that idea because he was by instinct a Nehruvian. He was by instinct a person who would not do partisan politics at the expense of the country's interests. You would never find him out of sync when he spoke flawlessly without any help from any notes. He spoke extempore most of the time until he became Prime Minister. And as Prime Minister, he had to read from texts, which was very much understandable. But as a public speaker and as a parliamentarian, his speeches are poetry in action. And he had great gift of saying things which were bitter in a very sweet way, in a very humorous way. I remember once he was in the opposition and Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister. George Fernandez got up and made a claim. And at that time, I saw Atalji interrupting George Fernandez. That was not something one expected from Mr. Vajpayee. He got up to interrupt George Fernandez and said, "Who told you that?" He said, "The Prime Minister himself. He told me that." And he said, "Oh, so you decided to come and disclose it here in Parliament?" If we cannot keep privileged conversations between leaders privileged and we go public with them, the element of trust will be gone in politics. Here was Mr. Vajpayee, the classic parliamentarian, who brought so much of mirth, so much of wisdom, and so much of perspective to the house to which he belonged. He was not scared of defeats. He was a person who would say that a battle is lost, the war is on. And that's exactly what he told me when he lost the election in Gwalior to Madhav Sindhya. And when his party got reduced to 2 seats because of a principled position that he took post 1984, that he went out and reached out to include the Sikh population in the campaign. The Congress at that time hadn't even cared to seek the community's vote after Indiraji's assassination. He made it a point that these people came out and participated. And in my view, until then, his singular contribution to Indian democracy and Indian system and Indian ethos was that he could retain the secular character of the Indian vote after Indira Gandhi's death. And I asked this question of a BJP leader, S.S. Aluwali, in a TV debate once. He couldn't tell me as to what was Atalji's seminal contribution until then. And when I made this point, he agreed with me wholeheartedly that he kept the secular vote of India intact. K.C. Pant, who won on the New Delhi constituency, later he joined the BJP, but that year he won the New Delhi constituency on the Congress ticket, 84 elections. I asked him, "Have you won on a secular vote?" He didn't have a cogent response. He said, all sections voted for me. The fact was that Sikhs did not vote for the Congress, but they did vote for the BJP. Although the BJP got reduced to a minority of 2. Here was a leader who was willing to lose elections to keep the Indian ethos intact, to keep the idea of India intact.